Good afternoon, panel. It is my duty as a first-line supervisor of the Philadelphia Police Department to ensure my officers are highly motivated, highly trained, so they can provide citizens of Philadelphia the highest level of service. I recognize the issue of the smell of alcohol in one of my officers is a very serious and sensitive matter that requires my immediate attention and action. During this particular roll call, as I'm addressing my officer, I need to switch things up and reinforce some things. I let the officers know what I expect of them and what they expect of me, and I would not tolerate any officer who are not performing at the highest mental capacity or physical capacity by any means. The Philadelphia Police Department prohibits any officer engaged in any form of alcohol or illicit drugs under any circumstances, especially when they're in full uniform. At the end of this particular roll call, I'm going to address the particular officer to be on standby. I'm going to immediately notify my immediate supervisor of the findings I discovered from one of my officers, the investigation I plan to pursue, and the guidance I'm going to need during this matter. We're going to now speak to the particular officer in private. And if it's a female officer, I want to make sure I have a female supervisor of the same rank or higher rank who's going to be in attendance as we talk privately. So during this private conversation, I want to establish a rapport. Just let this officer know they're in a comfortable and private setting. And we have to keep in mind that this officer who we smell alcohol on may not be under the full mental capacity during this particular time, because this officer can be under the influence and impaired. So during the time we build a rapport, we're going to, be direct and let the officer know that we smell alcohol on him and we believe this officer impaired and potentially under the influence. At this particular time, we're going to now take a listening and observing approach and allow this officer to speak freely and express themselves on the matter. And during this particular time, it's very vital because we can now examine the officer's demeanor, attitude, emotion, and even speech. All these signs will give us a better understanding of what's going on. At the end of this private matter, we will now take possession of the officer's firearm, his taser, which is a CEW controlled electronic weapon, and any other necessary equipment from there. The officer will now be transferred to Internal Affairs. Internal Affairs is the unit that handles all internal complaints against police, and use of force incidents. As the officer is now transferred to Internal Affairs, pending a physical exam, whether it's urinalysis or a hair sample, they will now handle the bulk of the rest of the remains of the investigation. From there, under my guidance, my supervisor, I'm now going to conduct a thorough investigation because I now want to make sure that if this is an isolated or a widespread problem. And the first one I want to speak to is the officer past supervisor. They will give me a better understanding of clues and information pertaining to officer behavior in the past. Has the officer been this way? Have he shown any signs in the past before? And also, when I want to speak to this officer, he or she peers. No one knows this officer better than the officer they work with side by side every day. And as police officers, we work in an environment where we're very buddy-buddy, not just on the job, but off the job. We have a working environment where, hey, you want to meet up after work, go to a little bar. It's a common setting amongst police officers. But at this point in time, I want to, ascertain, has his officer shown any signs while on work of potential alcohol abuse? And what is his behavior off the job? Again, these are all just give me clues and information pertaining to the officer behavior and potential alcohol abuse. Everything I want to look through paperwork. I want to look at this officer's performance evaluation to see what his past supervisors thought of him. Have they displayed shown signs of impairment, erratic behavior? I want to look at the officer patrol logs, see if this officer is answering ready calls within his PSA, which is the police service area that officers are assigned to within their tour of duty. I look at past disciplinary actions. And I also want to look at complaints against police, but I also want to look at his activity and use of force incidents. These are very vital because this officer who I now detect alcohol on it is going to the community to serve the community. So the only one that is now a victim of potential misconduct is the community because they're not getting the highest level of service needed provided to them because they're not getting service from an officer who is under the influence. From there, I want a little personal observation. Upon approval of my supervisor and commanding officer, I want to do a locker inspection of the officer locker. And from here, I would just want to, hopefully through this officer locker, I can detain any potential clues or any information. And I also want to do a walk around the area this officer usually patrolling, his usual PSA. I just want to, communicate to the community just to see, hey, how was the officer's behavior? How was the level of service? Did they show any signs of any erratic behavior? Did he treat them with professional manner? Just to get a perception of how the community felt for this officer. And I also want to view this officer body on camera and for training purposes only, just to monitor his behavior. Now that we established control of the situation, I identified potential causes of concern for the officer, I need to put additional measures in place just to make sure that this never happens again. And what better way to do this? Through the form of training. Training is the backbone of the Philadelphia Police Department. So I have to ensure that my officers are highly trained, and that training includes myself as well. So through roll call, which is again 15 minutes of our statutory duty that allows two-way communication between the supervisor and his officers. And let the officers know, I want to update them on the departmental policy of impairment and drug use. And let officers know that, again, the police department prohibits any officer engaged in any form of alcohol abuse or illicit drugs under any circumstances. And if any officer is remiss in their responsibility to follow this department policy, I will not hesitate to institute progressive discipline. Also, through this training, I want the officer to know about ABLE. ABLE is our active bystander for law enforcement. It's a duty to intervene, regardless of rank. So at this point in time, I'm fortunate enough that me as a supervisor, that I was able to detect this officer being smell of alcohol on this officer. Because just imagine if this officer would have went to the community. This officer had the capability of killing someone. Because now he's going to the community under the influence, and he has to drive one of our patrol vehicles. So I want to let officers know the importance of ABLE, because if they see another officer who is now potentially who's impaired or smell alcohol, they can potentially save this officer's life, or even someone from the community at that self as well. I want to now coordinate with EAP, which is our employment assistance program, to now come to our roll call to address our officers. Just inform them of the services that are provided to them, whether it's counseling, behavioral health screenings, and it's not just for the officer, but for the family as well. And let them know that whatever they're going through, we have necessary resources for them, and we do everything in power to help our officers. Because in the day, we're now working in an environment where it's very hostile nature, and now these officers are taking this hostile approach and have to go home. So they're now working in a hostile environment, and they potentially might be going home to an environment that's hostile as well. From here, I want to recognize the officers. Understand that we're now faced with an environment where it's very hostile for police officers, very tough for our officers. And we never know what the officer is going through at home as well. So I recognize an officer, whether it's a simple thank you for coming to work every day and doing everything they can to provide the adequate services, whether it's a district combination, a merit, or even a simple luncheon of just saying thank you. From there, I need to establish community involvement. Because again, if we would allow that officer to go on to the community today, the only one who could have suffered was the officer and the community itself. So through community involvement, I want to now coordinate with the Police District Advisory Council, which are PDAC. This is a group of stakeholders of the community that bridge the gap and to address any issues that community has with the police, so we can solve it in a timely manner. So through PDAC, I want to communicate with the community, rather through a formal community meeting. Just, training the community and us also officers the better ways to manage, identify, and detect someone or a loved one, or even a peer that is suffering from alcohol abuse. And this is important for us officers, because if I as a supervisor did not detect that, I would now have felt in this officer, and I could potentially have this officer face life-threatening circumstances. Through here, I want to do a follow-up. And through this follow-up is going to be the officer of that we smelled alcohol on. I'm not aware of the circumstances or the outcome of the investigation. However, I want to extend my regards to this officer and just let this officer know that if anything this officer needs, we are there for him. Whether, again, employment assistance program or even external services in the form of Penn Medicine, who have expansive counseling, behavioral health, peer groups for officers potentially of the alcohol abuse. And I want the officer know that anything he needs, I'll be there for him. And because I believe one day this officer will return to us as a full-fledged officer, and I let this officer know and reassure this officer, I will do everything in my power to ensure this officer can serve the community again at the highest level of service. I'm going to now detail an after-action report. Through this after-action report, it's going to detail all the necessary steps I took in this place. I have notified the officer, I have trained my officer thoroughly. I put additional measures into place, and also informed the community the best ways we can help manage and detect alcohol abuse. I'm going to forward this to my immediate supervisor and also to research and planning. And when I forward the research and plan, make sure I exclude the officer's information, but just so research and plan has ideal steps or ideal standard procedure when dealing with such a situation. Again, I am sure my officers were highly motivated, highly trained, and that training and motivation includes myself as well. Thank you so much for your time.